You're about to watch one of the most beautiful games I've played in recent memory, and this came in round four of the Fujairah Blitz Tournament. If you missed the first three rounds, I'll link a playlist below. I had three really intense, hard-fought games thus far, and coming into round four, I'm 1.5 out of three. My fourth round opponent is WFM Anna Shukhman, rated 23-26 FIDE Blitz, which is around my rating. So yeah, we're due to have a hard-fought game. Now, when the round began, neither of us were actually at our board, and there was a little bit of confusion because I had a designated board for filming, and the pairings showed a different board number. So it took a moment for both of us to sit down, and the arbiter actually started my clock, and then we shake hands. And before making my move, I adjust my pieces, and now the game finally begins. Pawn to d4, and my opponent plays the Dutch defense, which is not an opening I encounter too often, but generally against the Dutch, I like to play a London setup still. And we're both blitzing out our respective setups. I play c4, castling, knight c3, d6, and now I play this move pawn c5. And this is one of my favorite pet lines against the Dutch. It's definitely not most common. A lot of players are not prepared for this from the black side. The idea of c5 is to make room for lightsword bishop, also to open up the diagonal to the black king, also put more pressure on the queen side. But my opponent pretty quickly plays pawn to c6. I play queen to b3 check, and then she plays pawn to d5, which is somewhat of a committal move. It does block the check, does strengthen control over e4, but it loses control over e5. And I start here with bishop to e2, just a flexible, solid, developing move. And she plays knight to e4. And now I'm trying to figure out what exactly my plan is in the position. The most natural move is probably to castle kingside, but I had other ideas, and I started with the move pawn h4, which is very thematic for this opening. And the idea is to really just keep the rook on h1 and support the ventral break with h5. And in many cases, white can try and orchestrate a kingside attack, trying to induce some weaknesses in black structure. So I was feeling well within my comfort zone at this point, getting some early time advantage. Opponent is taking her time. And then she plays knight to d7. Now, when she played this move, I really only identified one purpose behind her move, is that black wants to play knight df6 and reinforce the knight on e4. However, I did miss a second purpose behind this move, which we will see very soon. So meanwhile, I was trying to figure out what to do myself. Of course, h5 was my candidate move. I was also considering knight to g5, but I do end up playing pawn h5, so creating tension between the pawns on the king side. And then she starts to think, taking a bit of time here. In the moment, I was expecting knight df6, just to improve the knight, get kind of a stonewall type setup. But I was not anticipating the move she's about to play. She very confidently plays pawn to e5, which just creates a lot of chaos in the center. Now, at first with this move, it looks like black is losing a pawn because I have 1, 2, 3 pieces attacking e5, and there's only 2 things defending e5. However, if I take on e5 with my pawn, then I leave my c-pawn undefended and would allow either knight to capture on c5. And also, if I take with my knight on e5, then there's a line takes and takes and takes and takes. And again, I'm losing my c5 pawn in the end of that variation. So I took some time, and I ended up having a very interesting idea, which did not revolve around addressing her last move, but rather revolved around generating my own counterplay. And I end up playing knight takes d5, sacrificing my knight. She immediately recaptures. I take with queen, forcing king h8, and then I take on g6. And we wind up in a position where it looks like I'm in full control. I have just sacrificed a knight for 3 pawns, but I have massive initiative along the h-file. I'm threatening mate in 1 with rook takes h7, and it looks like black's whole kingside is crumbling here. She has no time to take my bishop on f4, but black does have a way to defend. And it turns out that this is the beginning of what's going to be a really, really crazy sequence. Now, she was taking time here, probably debating which knight to move to f6. Either knight df6 or knight ef6 would defend against the mate threat. But she does play knight e to f6, which turns out to be an annoying move for me to meet, because not only is she defending my mate threat with the knight defending h7, but she's attacking my queen, and my bishop is still attacked on f4. So what looked to be a position where I was in full control actually looks like black is controlling everything here. My queen is hanging, my bishop is hanging. I am down a minor piece for 3 pawns. But here, I wanted to keep the sacrifices coming. And instead of saving my queen, I played bishop takes e5. And this is the first moment where I can say, oh no, my queen. Of course, we're in a playing hall with other players, so I did not scream that out. But yeah, if black takes on d5, then I'll have forced checkmate with rook takes h7, king g8, rook g7, king h8, rook h7, king goes back to g8, and then rook h8 would be checkmate. So my queen is untakeable here, and I've managed to save the bishop and win another pawn. So everything looks to be in really good shape for me. And she ends up playing pawn to h6, which is actually a very useful move in trying to neutralize the h-file. And this keeps my queen attacked. And from my perspective, of course, I could move the queen. I could play a move like queen d6 or drop the queen back to b3. But I really wanted to keep the pressure and keep my initiative in the position. And this is the second queen sacrifice, bishop to c4. And this is another situation where black can't take my queen. If knight takes d5 here, then I would have rook takes h6 because black's bishop would be pinned to the king would be forced to g8, I would take on d5, and black's whole position would crumble. So for 2 moves in a row, my queen is attacked by black's knight, but the queen is untakeable. She has to figure out what else to do. She plays queen to e8, which is a useful move in the position, attacking my undefended pawn on g6. And even though my pawn has seemed like a strength in the position, it's also a weakness. It's overextended, it's not defended. So now my queen is still attacked, my pawn is attacked. It's still very chaotic to assess what's going on. And already at this point, we have both fallen below a minute. So things are about to get really, really crazy. I end up casting queenside, leaving my queen hanging for a 3rd move in a row, but black still can't take it because of the line rook takes h6, king g8, and bishop takes d5. Not mating, but it would force black to block with queen or rook, and I would be winning a boatload of material in that line. So black is still under immense pressure, and she's falling very low on time, falling below 30 seconds. And then she unleashes this move knight to b6, which is a very clever and resourceful move in the position, because now my queen is attacked by both black knights, and the only safe square I can move my queen is to d6, but that would allow knight takes c4, and then my queen is trapped. So my queen is basically trapped in this position, and she's also unleashed her light squared bishop, so I don't have queen e6. And I had to figure out what to do with my queen being attacked twice. Yeah, what else to do but to sacrifice it yet again? I take the knight on b6 with my pawn, which seemed to be the most natural move. But now she finally takes my queen on d5, and now actually, oh no, my queen, my same tactical line doesn't work as well as it did in the previous variations, because after I take on h6, king g8, bishop takes d5, she has bishop to e6, and black is actually defending, but I try and keep the pressure. I take on g7, and now she has to decide which bishop to recapture. Now, do note here that I only have 5 seconds on my clock. We are playing with a 3-second increment. She takes on d5. I blitz out bishop to e5, and she actually took the wrong bishop because now I'm still having a mating attack, threatening rook h8 checkmate. She plays rook c8 check, I play king d2, and how does black stop the checkmate here? There's really no way. She sacrifices her queen, and now material is in a spot where I'm the one who's up. And after bishop g2, rook g1, bishop to e4, I still have a mating attack. I play pawn g7. After rook c2, king d1, I am just mating, rook h8. She tried to play king f7, but this is checkmate. And the game ends in what was a really, really crazy tactical finish. There is a lot to unpack here. So let's hop into the analysis. The opening, I think, was like very standard. I was happy to play this pet line, and for anyone that doesn't know what to play against the Dutch, I can very highly recommend this variation with c5, just because I think it's just easier to play for whites. These ideas of queen b3 and h4 and h5 going into the middle game. So let's get to the point where things got messy, starting with pawn e5. And it turns out that knight takes d5 was the best move in the position, the first of many sacrifices in this game, sacking the knight, and yeah, getting very strong attack against black's king. And when she played knight ef6, this was the best defensive try, but I also responded with the best move to just take on e5. And to show this on the board, if she does take my queen, then the mate ends like this. It's somewhat of a windmill. Rook takes g7, king h8, rook h7, king g8, and rook h8 is checkmate. So yeah, that was the first queen sack. The second queen sack was here when I played bishop to c4. And again, if she takes the queen, there's takes and king g8 and takes. And the line can keep going here because after rook f7, I'm not immediately mating, but I would take with the pawn. After king f8, there's bishop d6, which forces a queen to e7. And this is what I had calculated when I played bishop c4. There's actually a really nice move here to continue with, is not to take the queen, but to play rook e6, taking advantage of the fact the queen is pinned, and if black takes the bishop, I don't take the queen, I would just mate on e8. So again, she made the right call by not taking my queen. And what happened in the game, after bishop c4, queen e8 was a good try. And in this moment, I should have just saved my queen. I should have played queen d6 and understand the fact that I have 4 pawns for the sacrifice knight. And even if I allow queen takes g6, white has more than enough compensation. I'd be winning the pawn on f5 with still a massive attack. But castling queenside definitely kept things spicy. And then when she played knight to b6, I was just in the rhythm of sacrificing my queen every move. So yeah, I took the knight, and this pretty much gave away my whole advantage. What I should have done in this position, and the best move according to the engine, was actually to sacrifice my rook with the move rook takes h6. And this is one of the only ways to save my queen. It would force bishop takes h6, and then I can take on b6, and she can't take on d5 because the knight is now pinned. There's no bishop on g7, and white is very much for choice here. Rook h1 is coming, and all my pieces are ready to just rampage on the king side. So it was a missed opportunity for me to yeah, sack the rook and save my queen. But instead, I sacked my queen, I took the knight, and this is where things got really messy, because after rook takes h6, king g8, bishop takes d5, bishop e6, we see the point of why she played knight b6 earlier was to allow the bishop to block the check. And in the moment here, it felt like I was just running out of firepower. And when I take on g7, black is now for choice. And the move she should have played was just to take my dark squared bishop, keeping my rook attacked, keeping my bishop attacked. This position is still far from simple because I would have them move rook h7, and if king takes g6, white is winning because rook h1, and rook h6 is a mate threat, which is very, very hard to stop. But yeah, what could have happened was king g8, and the engine finds a crazy move here, pawn g7, to allow king takes h7, but then I can take on f8, and after takes knight g5, there's still some initiative. It's still like really, really complex. I don't think I want to go down that rabbit hole, but who knows what would have happened there. I was very fortunate that she took on d5. And after bishop e5, it turns out that black has one defensive try that she told me she should have played after the game. And we were analyzing a little bit after the game, is what if black plays this move, rook f6? At first it looks like it's just a free rook, but if I take it, then black is better after queen c6, hitting my king and my undefended bishop. So if she played rook f6, the only way for white to keep a winning position is to not take the rook, but just to build the battery on the h-file with rook dh1. And the prospect of rook h8 is still very deadly. It is kind of hard to understand because black has some checks here, but basically after king d2, my rook is going to be infiltrating, and black is not in good shape here. So when she played rook c8, this allowed me to save my king and finally get a clearly winning position. She did have to just sack the queen here, and the finish was very smooth. So this is a super fun game. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you have questions, leave them below. I will leave a link to the Lichess study with this game, so if you want to analyze all the crazy lines on your own, feel free to do so. And stay tuned for more. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys soon.